Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Beautiful, beautiful sunny day up here in New York. We are September 27th, 2022. Let's get into it. You're on Fast Entrepreneur. All right. So I wanted to shoot a quick video, kind of just some recaps, some things that I've been thinking about recently. Yeah, you know, I haven't been shooting as many videos over the summer, you know, doing other things, and also just, you know, felt that it was best to kind of space it out. But so let's get into it. Well, first, just to recap, we are still pretty much, you know, in the same range. Bitcoin around 20K. The Ethereum merge did its thing. It transitioned successfully, so that is a really cool thing. But you probably have noticed, or maybe you haven't if you haven't traded, the gas prices. The gas prices, like today, you know, I just went to go look. We're looking at like $30 to $38 per transaction. Wow. Now, come on. I think we all kind of knew that the merge is not set to necessarily solve those problems, but it was meant to transition from proof of work to proof of stake, and also to lay the groundwork. And if you want to read a little bit more kind of about the roadmap that's coming up for Ethereum in the next, let's say, well, who knows? I mean, there's no dates, but it could be the next couple of years. We don't know. You can go check that out. But, you know, they have several phases. We just went through the merge. The next, you know, we have like the verge. If you want to get into the details, where Vitalik talks about, or, you know, I mean, the whole Ethereum Foundation, but talks about, you know, moving away from Merkle trees to Verkle trees. If you don't know what they are, it's probably not that important at the moment, but that's the verge. We got the surge, the purge, and the splurge. Basically everything else. Basically, it's a way of over time making Ethereum, hopefully, to fulfill its vision, become one of the world's first, like, you know, truly decentralized AI computers. You know, easy to run, easy to validate, etc. You know, right now, even to validate it, you know, with these Merkle tree proofs, you have to download the entire state of Ethereum, and obviously that keeps getting bigger. I think we're even getting, I think just to download the entire state of the current Ethereum, I think it's like, you know, 990 gigabytes. You know, so think about it. You know, that's a lot just to verify. So moving forward, you know, there's going to be plans so that you do not have to download the entire state, and that not, or at least not every validator. There's also going to be work to, you know, to move these transactions more onto layer 2s. So layer 2s like Optimism and Arbitrum, and obviously others. These become even more and more important. And then obviously sharding. So sharding, they're going to have their own kind of side, these chains. I believe they're limiting the number of chains of these shard chains, maybe like 64. And I think they will run in accordance kind of with the layer 2s. And then the grand finality still on Ethereum. But anyways, that's Ethereum, and that's kind of the long-term roadmap. Pretty cool. Obviously, if you've been on this channel, you know I'm a very long-term thinker. That's why I like to keep the big picture. That's why I bring up these things, you know, when it comes to Bitcoin, when it comes to Ethereum, where we're going, how we're going to scale. Obviously, I talk a lot about TRUEBIT protocol. In my opinion, I think TRUEBIT is in a league unto its own in terms of what it can do, not only for scaling blockchains like Ethereum and others, but also scaling computation in a trustless way, you know, as the world gets more and more infused with AI. So, you know, it's obviously, at least in my mind, TRUEBIT's a longer term play. And, you know, if you're looking for a quick price action, you know, well, I can't say one way or the other how quickly, projects like TRUEBIT will be noticed. But I tell you this, I mean, it seems like pretty amazing that, a project like that with its potential is sitting at the price that it is today. So, probably at some point in the future, we may be able to look back and remember these days. And like they always say, right, you can make money, in the bull markets, but they say that you can get rich during the bear markets. So if you prepare yourself, now where are we in terms of this bear? Obviously, there's big macro trends. We've got, inflation all around the globe. We've got governments, basically running into debt problems. We've got war, supply chain issues, Russia, etc. So, I mean, there could be more pain to fall. We've got interest rates rising, in certain countries now as we speak. How long is this going to go? I think we will have to wait and see. But there's certainly, things to be looking out for. If you just look at, say, like the dollar right now, the dollar, if you think if you're looking at the DXY, the Dixie, it's kind of like the dollar index, right? So think of it, it's like the price of the dollar. Everyone's rushing into the dollar. Why? Because if you look around the globe, you've got to put your money somewhere, and you're kind of looking at, relative to everything else, what is safer. And so, at this point, a lot of people look at the U.S. government as one of the safest places on planet Earth to store their assets and to store, wealth. So the dollar has appreciated a lot. Although it does look parabolic, it kind of looks, like a lot of these small cap, crazy coins that we look at. But I think that's what's going on. People moved out of things like the stock market, out of crypto, and probably into things like the dollar. And it could be, depending on when this trend does reverse, the dollar may end up coming back down. We might still have, the dollar may even go up even further for the short term. But at some point, you would think that, people would take profit, move away from the dollar into other places because your risk reward kind of ratio and adjustment, at that point, it might just make sense. So, in terms of, I think regulation is just one thing that has kind of been on my mind, because I think it's a huge topic. How is the United States in particular, and also the world, going to regulate and treat crypto assets now and in the future? And so I guess the way I'll right now, you have, like in the United States, you have, what is it, maybe something like eight different regulatory bodies. They all do different things. You have like the SEC, that does mostly securities regulation. Then you have like the CFTC, you have others. But, so for the most part, they've all kind of been, I guess, coming out somewhat, pro-crypto. And when I say pro-crypto, meaning kind of pro-innovation, kind of, maybe it's not our role, but a few have stepped up, especially the SEC, and the now current chairman, Gary Gensler, seems to be taking a very different, kind of a harder stand on this. So we have Bitcoin has been deemed, a commodity. So, when something is a commodity, it's property. It's a whole different ball game. But the question is whether or not all these other, things are securities, need to be registered, licensed, and eventually come under the rule of like the SEC, is yet to be said. But we will have to wait and see. And so up to this point, even Ethereum, I mean, if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're the major two. But up to this point, even Ethereum, deemed a commodity, you're thinking that, okay, they're in the clear. However, with Ethereum's new move from proof of work, right, taking all these, GPUs, all these, big computer programs, all this, running them all, and validating transactions that way in a decentralized manner to proof of stake. What this does is potentially put even Ethereum on the chopping block. And, I've been reading several different things. I mean, it sounds like, everywhere from, Gary Gensler saying, yes, even Ethereum, I think, is, potentially under these rules, and potentially that the Ethereum Foundation could be potentially responsible for every transaction and overseeing every transaction that occurs on its network. So, I mean, if that were to occur, I think it would definitely be a very, a monumental blow, but a very big shift in kind of the current era. And, right now, the SEC and kind of, I guess, the biggest test case out there is the Ripple case. So if you're unfamiliar, Ripple is a company, and, mostly, I mean, you can look them up, but they're one of the top, probably, I think number 6 now, but, one of the top 10 for sure. And they've been as high as the top 3 cryptocurrencies in the world. But Ripple, helps with kind of large, kind of bank-to-bank transfers, etc. And one of their products was XRP. And so the XRP token, has taken on kind of a life of its own. But the reason why this gets interesting is that right now, I mean, they've been under kind of scrutiny of the SEC for quite some time. The XRP token has been delisted from many, many exchanges, over the last year or two, meaning that, you can't buy them, sell them, trade them on these exchanges because they, the exchanges themselves and, these companies, they just don't know the regulatory framework, at the moment. So we may get some clarity on that. Now, the history of it, back in the I believe it was like 1933. So this is when a lot of, this is just, in the kind of in the heart of the early Depression years, new banking laws were kind of set up back then. Obviously, this is pre-internet, blockchain, everything that we have today. But there was one test called the Howey test. Now, there's 4 simple, I say simple, but you could debate them, till your head goes blue. But 4 simple tests on, what deems a security an actual security. And, you've got to go through the checklist and ask yourself, does it meet that? And so I think that's what we're dealing with now. I mean, Ripple obviously has their own stance, and the SEC is trying to prove their stance. We're basically getting to the point where we're gonna have to wait and see what the courts say and what the courts come down on. But this could be potentially, whatever the outcome is, could be a litmus test for all the future projects. Something to definitely keep an eye on. And we've been thinking for a while we might be getting a decision anytime now, but still waiting. So, but seems like people say, well, maybe by the end of the year. So we'll have to wait and see on this. All right. So that's regulation. Definitely, regulation can be a great thing. It can bring a lot of clarity, to companies, and just to projects and jurisdictions and everything. But if it's not done in the right way, it could potentially stifle innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship in certain countries. So we'll have to wait and see. And then there always comes down to, just like, well, will certain states, or will certain countries, sovereign nations, will they ban, say like certain technologies like proof of work, blockchains versus proof of stake, which tends to be better for the environment. So these are major archery. Like I said, I haven't shot in a video in a while, but if you're just tuning in or catching up, or let's say if you got a friend or somebody that kind of maybe wants to just get the lowdown on this whole crypto thing, one-stop shop. Hey, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just sharing my personal experience, my opinion. If you don't know much about me, I first got involved in cryptocurrencies back in 2016 during that bull run. I'd owned a few Bitcoin back when they were pretty cheap, and then sold them all off. Didn't know what I was really doing or into, and since then it's just more of a learning. It's been more of a learning experience. But it's opened my eyes into, the technology, what this revolution can do, is doing, and kind of the time frame, and just realizing, this is an evolution, looking into altcoins and everything, but I've really enjoyed it, and that's why I share this. I also do have experience, with economics and finance. I graduated from Princeton University with a degree in economics. I used to be a licensed financial planner. I'm not currently at the moment. Obviously, nothing I ever say is financial advice, ever. Do your own research. This is merely just educational, entertainment purposes. But, I'm sharing my experience because after going through, the bull run for crypto in 2016 and 17, and then, diving deep into the weeds, into the tech, and realizing, okay, learning about the big things like the Bitcoin halving cycle. If you don't know what that is, it's been like every 4 years, the number of new Bitcoin released, upon mining transactions gets cut in half. So it's kind of like a supply shock. And every time it's kind of spurned its own bull run thereafter. So learning about these things, helped me kind of see and kind of anticipate this last bull run that we had, and sure enough, it did occur. I'm not here to say, calling the bottom, calling the top, but to look in the big trends of things. I think I was not shocked at the start of the bull run. I think I was a little shocked at, the fact that maybe it petered out where it did. I thought that maybe Bitcoin would have gone a little bit higher this current cycle. I think the double top was very interesting, but I think, now we're kind of, this bear market seems to be playing out the way that, that most have. So, what else? Let's see. All right, well, let's talk bear market, but let's also say, bear market may be for some, but a bear market doesn't need to be for all. And there are still opportunities out there. So at the beginning, and so I'll back up and I'll tell you kind of my personal thoughts and strategies on approaching crypto this summer. You can go back and, you don't have to, but I'll just tell you, I was focusing mostly on 2 or 3 things here. At the beginning of the summer, we knew that the merge was probably likely, but coming up. However, I had said I was focusing on 2 major ecosystems, the Cosmos ecosystem and the PULSECHAIN ecosystem. So PULSECHAIN has yet to be launched. If you're unfamiliar, it's going to be a fork of the Ethereum proof of stake network, and all of the coins will be basically copied over 1-to-1. It'll be a new market, and market participants decide how that works out. Now, it's founded by Richard Hart. He's a cool dude. He's definitely got a name for himself, and he's a guy that's been an OG for a while. I really think that he educates his community, and he has experience, way beyond myself and many others. So hopefully the PULSECHAIN will bring about kind of this what we just experienced with the ETH merge, but hopefully PULSECHAIN will also bring down fees. So could be very interesting, because Ethereum itself, may take quite a while, like we just said at the beginning of this video, with the verge and the surge and the purge and the splurge. PULSECHAIN could be one of the first to market in that regard. Now, it's not out yet, but one thing I will say is, because I've seen this with other ecosystems, and I'll talk about Cosmos again, is the idea of stakers getting airdrops. So if you don't know what an airdrop is, it's basically, it's you pay taxes and all, but it's free income, it's free money that's rewarded to early users of a protocol or a project. And what has been quite common and popular, like if I draw from, say, the Cosmos ecosystem, is the folks of the major, so the major layers, the major dexes, and maybe a few other major projects. Stakers of those, you stake a certain minimum amount, you are then potentially eligible for when new projects launch. They say, hey, we want to, give these coins to our community because, they realize that we are probably, those types of people are most in line or most aligned with the values and understanding that they're looking to put forward. So, with that being said, I had said earlier, and I anticipated that I felt like the same thing was going to happen in the PULSECHAIN ecosystem, and sure enough, it is. We are starting to see it, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Even though it hasn't launched, there are still projects that have already offered airdrops, and so what we had was, in order to launch PULSECHAIN so that it would not be deemed as a security, one of the things in the Howey test is, that you're not expecting profit from the work of others. So PULSECHAIN had a sacrifice phase, which basically allowed you to, quote unquote, sacrifice or donate your funds. You may never get them back. So the sacrificers will be likely given some pulse when it launches, without a value initially. But what we're also seeing is other projects. So there's the main DEX, the decentralized exchange, right? Like a copy of Uniswap called PULSEX. People sacrifice for that as well. But you have people that sacrificed for these projects. Then you have other projects that are launching, looking for their community, looking for people to, start this journey with on their own project. And sure enough, sacrificers, holders, and stakers of some of these projects are the ones that are qualifying for that. And so, so I'm just talking PULSECHAIN, but I want you to understand, I guess the whole reason, probably that one of the major reasons that PULSECHAIN was started was for the HEX community, because HEX was an ERC20. It lived on the Ethereum blockchain. But again, the fees being high, it kind of defeated the whole purpose, and it took, cut into the vision of HEX. So HEX moving on to PULSECHAIN is the ultimate vision. But there are other projects, like for HEX that rewarded HEX stakers, like Hedron, or, now Icosa, you have Maximus DAO, and things like these. And so we're already seeing this, that people that are staking those types of tokens are becoming eligible for kind of these future, HEX-related projects. I'm anticipating the same to occur with PULSECHAIN ecosystem, a lot like it has in the Cosmos ecosystem. And so, yeah. So, while it may be a bear market, first off, I don't think anyone really told Cosmos that it is a bear market per se, because if you look at the charts, most of the majors have gone down, and Cosmos, has kind of, obviously from their peak they've gone down, but they've held a ton of their value, and I think there's a reason for it. I think Cosmos, in my opinion, when I saw it, found it, it just, the idea of interoperability, so the idea that blockchains can communicate and hold assets from multiple blockchains, but all using kind of the same underlying layer, the Cosmos hub, just made a lot of sense to me. And now we are having, newer projects. We've had, several big airdrops from Cosmos ecosystem, EVMOS, and others. And as we speak, in Spain, I believe, the Cosmos event the Cosmoverse is occurring. And I mean, these are some, big brain, projects, very neat. When you look at the folks that, if you're unfamiliar with Cosmos, and you look into Tendermint, look into Jaquan, Ethan Buckman, what these guys were doing with their consensus algorithm, how that basically turned into the Cosmos, and from then many projects came from some of those early folks. So where were we? I wanted to just, because this is kind of interesting. I'm not saying one way or the other, but when you look at some of these airdrop structures and the way they kind of are like an onion, right? Because if you hold, you hold one token, well, then you're airdropped another token. And then because you airdropped that token, now you're potentially airdropped another token. So it's kind of like an onion. Maybe it's like an unfolding Ponzi. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I will say that the folks that are in on the larger projects and early end up kind of getting rewarded. Why this may not be, it's more probably like an onion and rather than a Ponzi, is because, Ponzi is just taking new money and rewarding old. But a lot of these protocols do have real use cases, and they have, potentially fresh funds, either from, backers or bootstrapped, but, just something to keep in mind. Pretty interesting. What else is there? So let's talk Cosmos, because we talked about Cosmos. I think that Cosmos potentially has, is one of the more exciting ecosystems that I've been looking at, just because of what I see it doing already. But also they are evolving. So now we're looking at kind of Cosmos 2.0, which you'll have, you can look into this, but there's several different facets. I think they just launched their white paper like yesterday or whatever, so you can read even more about it. But, the one thing that I find interesting is this idea of interchain security. So you're going to have these say a new project wants to launch. They launch in the Cosmos ecosystem, potentially, airdropping, certain communities. But let's say if it's the chicken and the egg. If you don't have, a large enough community or large enough validators to validate your network, how do you keep your network secure, at the beginning? And so this interchain security is kind of a solution for this, is that it allows you to piggyback off of, the larger chains and their security. And also, there will be rewards to those, larger chain stakers. So pretty awesome stuff. Let's see. I don't know. I'm more just doing a recap. I hope that, this quick little recap kind of helps you and, lets you know what I'm thinking about. So those are some of the major projects, the major ecosystems. Like I said, I still got my eye on, Cosmos heavily. Definitely looking forward to PULSECHAIN, and seeing what's going on there. There's a lot of projects that are also going through sacrifice phases for new PULSECHAIN projects, airdropping to older ones. So, just getting yourself eligible, in these to have an address or so that has a sacrifice, from it, may make you eligible in the future. We just don't know. Let's talk quickly about some more airdrops, more so on layer 2, because these may be some of the larger ones coming up. And let's see. And then I kind of want to just talk more just about short-term, degen, crazy high risk, high reward type plays, but fun stuff nonetheless. So let's talk about layer 2's airdrops. So the big ones that are to be expected, we had Optimism. Optimism is one of the largest layer 2 solutions to help take some of that load off of Ethereum. And then you also have Arbitrum. Arbitrum has even more activity going on in terms of, value lock. So, and Arbitrum has not launched their token. Optimism has launched their token. Some people received that airdrop, and then a bunch of other projects, a bunch of other, protocols within the Optimism ecosystem. Some of them were also given more tokens, so that they could then, use them as they see fit to incentivize or airdrop to their users and grow their user base. Namely, look at Velodrome. So Velodrome, very interesting concept for a DEX, kind of like a flywheel, but once you got it started, it took off quite quickly to incentivize liquidity providers to earn, to not only provide liquidity, but to earn rewards. So you can check that out. But Arbitrum hasn't launched yet, and Arbitrum had announced an Arbitrum Odyssey. This was, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. It was kind of like a series of tasks that you could undergo and, collect an NFT. Who knows, but maybe collecting these NFTs then is kind of like a stamp to say, hey, I did this thing, and maybe makes you eligible or helps you become eligible for a future Arbitrum token airdrop. Well, they had to pause it because too many people were using the network, and it was getting clogged, and the fees went up. So they said, okay, hold off until we do our upgrade. And when we do our upgrade, then we'll probably resume. So that's where we are. You can take a look. Optimism has now kind of followed suit. There's an Optimism Quests, and it looks like you've got several months from probably the time of you watching this video to complete some of those quests. Similar, I don't know, what the definitive at the end, is there going to be, airdrops or how much, or, what's the value of doing these, but, everything is kind of a risk-reward play. But with projects that are as large as these are, they could potentially be quite large in terms of airdropping support to their communities. All right, let's get into the degen stuff. You still with me? So, yeah, I'm out for a walk. Beautiful day. I mean, to be like 60-something degrees almost at the end of September. Crazy. So, let's see, what do we got? The degen stuff. So, what do I mean? Well, this is like the high risk, high reward, everything could drop to zero tomorrow. You could get rubbed. Or, once in a while you could have that, that moonshot. So, these are not necessarily quote unquote solid, stable, holds, but maybe one in a blue moon could become something like that. So, the risk reward paradigm, but it might be something fun. And I did shoot a video the other day because I was coming across, so there's this guy on, he's a YouTuber, he's a Twitter guy, B Roots. He goes by B Roots Moon King. But what does he do? He basically, he looks at meme coins for the most part, and specifically tries to find meme coins with function and utility. Why meme coins? Well, probably because, let's look at Dogecoin. I mean, Dogecoin is still sitting in the top 10 of all cryptocurrencies. It started as a joke, and you have other meme coins that literally, just the rate of acceleration can be crazy astronomical, and you could take a small sliver, you have stories, $100 could go to $100,000, in short order. So he has this thing, he's been kind of having these Twitter spaces, and he calls it the altcoin Shark Tank. So he basically allows folks to come in and pitch anything for 2 minutes. He gives them, and maybe a little question and answer. But his process for doing so is he's trying, and this is kind of along the way that, and if you watch this channel, I mean, with anything, the biggest gains are the ones that you have first off, you get in very early, so you have a very good entry, right? Because if you're early, I mean, yeah, you can always fall to zero, but the upside could be many, many multiples. And then, if you truly have a like solid project and you're early, I mean, watch out. So now, okay, so let's talk about TRUEBIT, because I'm not calling TRUEBIT a meme coin, but TRUEBIT, in my opinion, is still early. However, it's not sitting at, $250,000 market cap, right? TRUEBIT is in the, probably whenever you're watching this, somewhere around, $20 to $50 million market cap. Now, it doesn't mean that, oh, well, that's too big, there's no money to be made. Well, you have to look at, well, what's the upside potential on a project like TRUEBIT? You could be talking multiple billions at some point. And it's, something that has tons of upside and like real world tangible, like use in these ecosystems as a whole. But what we're talking about here is we're talking about like things that, well, what if you could find coins when they just launched, like 15 minutes ago or an hour ago or a day or two ago? And so you literally can look at the holder account and you can say, well, hey, there's only like 3 people that hold this token, or like there's only, 25 people that are holding this token right now. And so how do you do that? Well, I mean, you can use Dex Tools is a very popular site. So Dex Tools, basically it's like a charting, kind of tool. It gives you all the price info, but it also tells you some information on liquidity. And why is that important? Because if you are a larger player, right? So I'm not talking to the smaller buys, but if you're a larger player and you want to make a kind of a large buy early on, you might have such a large amount that the price might shoot up so fast, and that even against yourself, because there may not be a lot of liquidity being provided. I mean, there may not be a lot of other, folks that are providing coins, to be bought and sold. So having higher liquidity can be a good thing. So you go on Dex Tools, you can go to live new pairs, and you can see all these contracts as they're getting launched. Now, like I said, it's more of like a fun thing because, unless you're doing this like, all day, every day, and I mean, you're probably not going to be researching everything super in depth all the time. But you can do it, and we'll probably cut this video there. We can go into this stuff a little bit more another time. But see you later, and I hope it helps. Peace.